Charania gave us a few names to keep an eye on that could possibly sign with the Detroit Pistons this offseason. The names are Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, which is probably not going to happen now that he went to the New York Knicks, Tobias Harris, and fan favorite Miles Bridges. Me personally, I want to see Pascal Siakam play for the Detroit Pistons. Just another guy that can create his own shot, plays with a ton of energy. He can create for others. He's another guy that Cade or Ivy could drive and kick out to and hit an open three. He's a very good player that I think is going to have a few more years playing at a high level left in the NBA. I think the most realistic option, though, is Miles Bridges just because of his connection to the state of Michigan. And he is, I mean, I know some fans don't want to hear it, but he is having a pretty good season right now for the Charlotte Hornets. He's averaging 19 points, shooting 44% from the field, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and half a block per game. He is only shooting 31% from 3, which is down from his career of 34%. But Miles Bridges, I know all this stuff bothers people that happened off the floor, and that's fair if you feel that way. But he is still a good basketball player. I just want to finish it with that. But what name intrigues you the most out of these 4 names?
Well, the name that intrigued me the most was Pascal Siakam. My only concern with Pascal is the shooting from the perimeter. He's not known to be an elite 3-point shooter, and that's not really his game. His game is more in the post than the perimeter, which I think a lot of Pistons fans know that. They know that he's more of that, post presence. He kind of looks like the Tasmanian Devils at times, just the way he just with the spin moves and stuff like that. But I think Pascal has always been a name that a lot of Pistons fans look at the power forward position. It's like, yeah, I would like that guy on my basketball team. He's a good player. I would like him, but at the same time, I think Tobias Harris, to me, I've told you, I think he's more realistic than anyone on this list.
Okay.
I'm not going to speak on the Miles Bridges off the court stuff because it's not my place to talk about what he went through or what he did, I should say. And I can understand why some fans don't want him anywhere near the Detroit Pistons. It would actually kind of go against everything the Detroit Pistons have preached to us. We go after the person, not the player.
Yep.
So I kind of think it's contradictory. I was kind of surprised when Shams did mention his name this week, but for me, I would like Pascal Siakam, but I think ultimately Tobias Harris to me would probably be the most realistic, forward they go after. That's a name that the organization is familiar with. They traded for him once. Possibly they could trade for him again during this trading deadline or wait to see in free agency, what a number for him would be. But I think Tobias to me would make the most sense for this team just for the fact that he can score at all 3 levels and he's really familiar with this organization. And, he was a part of a team that made the playoffs. So I know he's a little bit on the older side, but that's just kind of my take on it with all these players that Shams did report this week. Obviously like Pascal, but I just don't know how realistic that could possibly be, especially when you're going to have a lot of teams in free agency trying to, bid you, even though you do have practically 50, 60 million in cap space, depending on what you do during this trading deadline. I just think, do you really want to max out a guy like a Pascal Siakam who's not known to be a 3-point shooter? Or would you rather possibly, pay Tobias Harris and he can at least hit a 3-point shot, at least league average? So that's kind of like my only argument with it.
I will say, just real quick before we move on, Pascal, 3 seasons, he made 34% or better. He actually hit 37% on 3 attempts per game his 3rd year in the league, and then 36% on 6 attempts per game his 4th year, his first All-Star appearance. I think when he has the larger offensive role, that's when you see the efficiency start to dip. That's why I think if he were to play, even though the Pistons aren't good, but if he was to play with a playmaker like Cade and Jaden Ivey, who do create a lot of gravity when they're going to the hoop or operating in the mid-range, he would get a lot of open looks. And I think that 3-point percentage would kick up a little bit more, but he's not shooting the ball very well this year at only 25% a game. But he's a guy that once you get him at the top of the key and he does that little, like you were saying, that Tasmanian Devil spin move. I mean, we've seen it a bunch tonight. It's so effective. And that's a guy, even at, he's 29 right now. He'll be 30, I think, next year. Probably even going into his 31st, going in to be 31. I still think he could be effective like that just because his game isn't really relied a ton on athleticism. He does need that quick first step, which eventually he will lose. But, I mean, still playing at a high level in his early 30s, I think that's something Pascal Siakam could do. He, out of this list, I do like Tobias Harris. He's a little bit older. But if I were to throw the bank at someone, it would be Pascal Siakam on this list, just because I think he could have make the largest improvement on this team just because of the role he could play. I mean, another 20-point scorer in an effective defender, not a great one, but an effective defender, I think that would really help this team out. I just don't see it actually happening for any of these guys, though, coming to Detroit. I don't know.
I mean, I can get why people want Pascal. He's younger. Like career-wise, he's shooting 32% from three. Tobias, career-wise, is shooting 36, almost 37%. So, I mean, it's not that I don't like Pascal. I do. I just question fit.
Yeah.
I think fit-wise, Tobias makes more sense on paper. But who am I to say that Pascal wouldn't fit with Cade Cunningham? I'm sure, they could find a way for those two to coexist together. I just kind of question because you have so much money tied up, like Isaiah Stewart, Marvin Bagley. What are you doing there at that power forward position? I mean, Marvin Bagley was a DMP tonight again. Like, I don't know what his future holds. Like, is he on the trading block? Do the Pistons want to move on from Bagley? Do they see Wiseman as more of that backup center? I don't know. There's a lot of questions you have to ask yourself as an organization and as fans too watching this. I think fans are very vocal about wanting guys like a Siakam, like a Kuzma, like a Jeremy Grant, like a Tobias. Even, some fans are with the Miles Bridges stuff. Like, I get it. I just think you need 3-and-D wings to help Cade Cunningham. I mean, you put Kevin Knox in the game and you see what happens when you put a competent player that can shoot three-pointers and put the ball on the floor a little bit. I mean, if you get this team some 3-and-D wings to complement, Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, and Cade Cunningham, you're going to see more wins on the basketball court. So I think any of these guys would, help Cade Cunningham out a lot. I just kind of question the fit with Siakam in terms of, the paint being clogged up, because if you want Siakam to be here in Detroit, he's going to really have to, shoot the 3-point shot closer to 35% for, I think, a lot of fans to be willing to give him that bag that he's probably going to be seeking this summer.
That makes sense. And those are all very fair points.